A pleasant good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. This tonight is a labor of love because we are in the constituency of St. Thomas, in the parish of St. Thomas. And for those of you who do not know, I see a good few people here in the first 3 or 4 rows. Lord, I got a lot of you, 5, 6, from St. James Central. And you all know that there are 3.5 boxes of the constituency of St. James Central which came out of the parish of St. Thomas. So it is a labor of love. And I want to begin by saying that Cynthia Ford has been a friend. She has been not only a colleague, she has demonstrated love, affection, devotion, support, loyalty, encouragement to my constituency, to me. Therefore, Cynthia, I wish you only the very best. I am here to assist you in whatever way I can to try to reimburse you for all that you have done for me in my political development, especially coming to this stage and this place in this party. And ladies and gentlemen, she who just graced this platform must also be recognized, because Mia Amor-Motley is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee of Barbados. And I want you to understand that the last time that a Public Accounts Committee in this country was able to complete an investigation into a department of government or the functioning of a department of government and present a report, having done all the evidence, then collate the evidence and present a report so that you, the people of Barbados, will understand how your money gets spent, was 1993-94. So that for the last quarter of a century, for the last 24, 25 odd years, there has been no leader of the opposition, chairman of a Public Accounts Committee, who has demonstrated the value to the people that Mia Motley has demonstrated during the course of these last 5 years. And you know that includes some big names. Because you went from leader of the opposition, you go after that invariably, almost without exception, you go on to be a prime minister. So that includes some big names. So I want you to know that she has been working, and I want you to salute her. Because what is now before the country, and what you will come to understand as the weeks and, well, in the moments really, you got at most 3 months, but really I don't think you dare go that far. The lash is going to be too heavy. The amount of time left back, the truth is, that which you will digest and internalize about the wrongdoings in Barbados, you have to thank Mia Motley, who against all odds, against every effort made by the Democratic Labour Party, was able to make sure that we promote and project that which we have projected to the country. And I also want to say to you that perhaps you should salute the members of the Barbados Labour Party as well, because without the likes of Senator Jerome Walcott, without the likes of Dale Marshall, without the likes, who else was there? Jerome, Dale, well, you had your humble servant, Mayor, and Wilfred Abrams. Without the likes of them, it would not have been possible. And I also must be fair. We could not have done it because key to all of this, and we'll come into that point now, key to all of this was the ability to hold and maintain a quorum. And Senator John Watson, the independent senator, was there throughout the test of time to make sure that we were able to do the work that we needed to do on behalf of you, the people of Barbados. Now, I had the honor, the distinct honor and great privilege to be a member of that Public Accounts Committee from its inception right through to today. And working shoulder to shoulder with our colleagues in trying to make this thing happen. And I want you to know that there's no gainsaying the fact the Democratic Labour Party went out of their way to provide obstacle after obstacle to make sure that the accounts the public accounts were not properly audited, investigated, deliberated upon. And you need to know as well, not just the people who stood in the trenches on your behalf, but you must know as well as a country, the people who went out of their way to make sure that everything was done to destroy the opportunity to expose all that is being exposed. The horrors and the scandals, the unprecedented scandal, may I add, because some of it has never been seen before in this country since the days of its independence. It is so bad. So that then you get people like Darcy Boyce, who draws a salary every month from the public purse, but never run, walk, nor trot for a seat in a way. Maxine McLean, same thing, a loiterer par excellence. Huh? And these are people whose existence in public life is owed directly and linked directly to the imprimatur, the stamp of approval of the Prime Minister of Barbados. So that when the records of the Public Accounts Committee could reflect that Darcy Boyce and Maxine McLean came on 2 occasions at most. For 42 sessions, they showed up twice. Get marked present twice. On one of the 2 occasions, the last of the 2, was simply to let the notice be served on Mayor Motley that within the next 24, 48 hours, there will be a bill placed on the order paper of the Parliament of Barbados so that you can repeal the Public Accounts Committee and its work would have to be stopped. That is the reason they went, and that is the reason they went alone. And they sit and serve you with the blessing of the Prime Minister, who I must only say good things about. You decide. You decide. Then you have David Eswick. You have the Attorney General. You have Richard Seeley. And the same performance by them. The Attorney General, quite frankly, I believe it is true to say, only attended 1 meeting of the Public Accounts Committee. And that is when he led the herd that went in there like cattle to say to Mayor Motley, tomorrow, and it was the Attorney General who said it, tomorrow we can file a paper, or the paper will reflect that we are repealing the Public Accounts Committee Act and bring this to a stop. And why was that done? It was done because the press published the fact that the Dale said 2.29, but there's a little more than that. It may be as much as 2.3, going into $2.4 million every single month for a period of over 3 years was going to the Ministry of Housing without the oversight or approval of the Parliament of Barbados. The National Housing, going to the National Housing Corporation without parliamentary oversight and approval. And when once that got in the paper that was happening, and people were expectedly so aghast and horrified, the response of those who serve in the Cabinet of Barbados with the blessing of an equally lawless and equally worthless Prime Minister, don't divorce him from it. You cannot divorce him from it because he is the political umbilical cord which facilitates the growth of this scandalous thing that passes itself off for government and governance in this Barbados, yours and mine. And you got to cut that umbilical cord. And so therefore they felt that their role was to come and to hang over our heads like a sword of Damocles the fate of the Public Accounts Committee and the threat of repeal. Now I want to say to you that there's a gentleman who, he went to school with me. I have had the painful experience of having to spend the first couple of years of my life at Harrison College shielding my script. Shielding my script from the eagle eyes of a fellow called Don Villinis. He is at best a slow starter and a burglar of other people's intellect. But he liked to be noticed. And Donville Innes, on Friday, did what he does best, tried to get notice. But on this occasion, Donville didn't want notice for himself. This is one of the rare occasions. In spite of all the abundance of evidence that you have before you in this country, and I want you to spend a little time, visit a few places in the constituency of St. James South. Drive through Torps and stop there by the Nichols Bakery there and advertising for nobody, but stop there and talk with some people. Go down in Haynesville and talk with some people. Go in West Terrace and Warren State and stop and just ask a few people, take soundings of what is happening, man. And you will understand that in spite of all the evidence that Donville Innes is on his last legs in his last days as a member of parliament, he believes that it is appropriate. And he believes in his heart of hearts, because he's an egotist as well. He believes in his heart of hearts that there will be a destruction of the Democratic Labour Party at the polls, but he will rise from the ashes like a phoenix, and he will project upon this country some form of leadership. That's what he expects to happen, against all the abundant evidence that I know of. And I in the constituency right next door. So, Donville Innes went to Parliament on Friday. And Donville decides, poor fella, that now this is what you got to be very careful. Donville doesn't really want you to get involved in an issue over the procedures surrounding the document called the Public Accounts Committee report. He ain't interested in that. And he don't want you getting that. You got to remember the story that was once told by a former leader of this party about the Alcan bauxite factory, bauxite mine in Jamaica, where they realized that pickaxes and hammers were disappearing at rapid rate, so they put guards at the front of the mine. And every evening they come out, they check in to see how much pickaxes come out, they cross-reference, see how much pickaxes went down the morning. And every evening they had a man with a wheelbarrow covered down. And he would roll out the wheelbarrow, they check, count the pickaxes, and he rolling along. And every evening they did that for a year. At the end of the year, they lost 366 wheelbarrows. You understand? And Donville want you to look. But he must make you look, or appear to be making you look, in the wrong place. Donville has no interest whatsoever in procedure. He knows, as we all know, that all that Mia Motley just explained about the process and the marshal before her is entirely correct. I hear him talking about quorum. Well, what quorum? The quorum is made up by the Labour Party, 5, and the independent senator. So that therefore what we do, even if the Dems don't come, is legitimately done because they are derelict in their duty, but their absence don't stop the train from rolling. When Donville is traveling on government business, cabinet will meet in his absence. As long as there's a quorum, he can't say that what cabinet did was not properly done, because once you are quorate, you are allowed to proceed in the absence of a member once you have sufficient to constitute a meeting. Does that make sense to you? So therefore, Donville didn't want that. What he wanted was a crossfire between him and Mia Motley to be reported across Barbados, so that you would ask a few key questions. Question number 1, wait, want to hear what happened in Parliament Friday? They had a noise. And the answer would be, a noise about what? And the answer, and then say, well, the noise was about the Public Accounts Committee. Apparently a report, notice of a report was put before Parliament. Oh, and I had a noise about that? But why do we got noise? Oh, the Democratic Labour Party keeping noise about it. They got something to hide. And when you get to they got something to hide, what sort of got to hide? What sort could be in there that they're trying to shield? People whose name get called in that were sitting down. Michael Ashley, I thought that he was typing, he had trembling on the table, so. For the first time ever, Big Mouth Chris Sickler, who has an opinion on everything under the sun, dumbstruck, as though by visitation of God, mute his lips, mute everything, shut down, sealed down. Dennis Kelman, who also has an opinion on everything under the sun. Not a peep out of Kelman, his voice could not be heard. But every 2 minutes, Donville up to draw as much attention as he could to the process. Why? Because Donville and his can't do as we do here, speaking with clear conscience and clear heart, and in good faith, to say to you that there was scandalous wrongdoing, that the Public Accounts Committee investigated, and that there are issues which, quite frankly, should make any one of the ministers involved not only hang their head in shame, but be subjected to the highest level of stricture by the Prime Minister who leads them. But Donville won't say that, but he can't come and tell you so. So he must create as much furor so that you will go and read and investigate in the hope that he has that you will find out for yourself. And the perverse nature of this thing that you call a Democrat Labour Party government is that the hope is that once you find out certain things, then you will vote out the DLP, and he hoped to hang on so that there's a political future for him. It is no different, and let me tell you, it is no different from that which took place with David Eswick and Christopher Sinclair. Let me remind you, because you all got in Barbados, there's a tendency to forget things. Remember that David Eswick is on record as having written a letter, I think it was in 2012, to say to his members of staff in the ministry, do not attend any meetings convened by the Minister of Finance. You're not authorized to go to any meeting that Chris Sinclair convened. That's what he said to civil servants that he has control over. If, however, the Prime Minister convened a meeting, you're free to go to that. But until further notice, I, David Eswick, tell you, you're not permitted to meet anybody from the Ministry of Finance. Now, when that happened, that was evidence of the internal war, the internecine warfare, what you might call fratricide, brother raising arm against brother. Because David Eswick was being, his ministry was being starved of resources by the Minister of Finance. And you see the end result of that today, because of lawless loitering, and in my view, utterly hypocritical Prime Minister. And I make no apologies, Mr. Jeff Bruns, for saying he's utterly hypocritical, because he's not genuine, he's not sincere, and those are the definitions of a person who is hypocritical. And he speaks with a forked tongue too. And the Prime Minister, failing to intervene, has allowed the South Coast, which falls under David Eswick's purview and portfolio, to descend into the absolute scandalous disgrace that it now is. When all along, all the evidence was there's no money in order to make sure that the maintenance is done. But the Minister of Agriculture, with great respect, I don't make any excuse for him because I think he's a very poor Minister of Agriculture. But let us be real and understand how the warfare in the Democratic Labour Party has hurt our country. Because David Eswick can't vote the money for himself, the Minister of Finance must do so. But if the Minister of Finance sets out on a diabolical and Machiavellian mission to cut the throat of his colleague, then his colleague dies a political death in the public glare, and the country also suffers. And it was on that latter point, because I really don't care about the political death of either two of them. But the country suffering is what I must care about. And the country suffers, and you see the South Coast Suez Project. And 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago, you would have seen in a section of the press a story that cannot be refuted, has not been refuted by anybody. I referred to it in the estimates last week, that the Bridgetown Suez Project the Bridgetown plant is in extremis. The story talked about how they're not getting any maintenance, how the machinery is broken down, how they need parts badly, how they do not expect that it can survive much longer. All of that was carried. Not a word from your Prime Minister. He is too busy doing a farewell tour in New York. Now he's going to say farewell to Kerrie Symmonds in Haiti. And I gather that he wants to go to London because the Queen meeting up there. There was a wedding up there, and he must go to see the Queen. And, he is an anti-imperialist and an anti-colonialist. And he stands in the breach on behalf of the poor black man, but he got his suit ready and he top hat to go and see the Queen. Those are from the church's priorities. And while all of this is taking place, let us not lose sight of the fact that this situation with the Public Accounts Committee has laid bare the raw bones of grievous wrong and misdoing and high places in Barbados. And I want to say to you tonight without fear, I say it openly, she who just left this platform may be too modest to say it, but she has made it clear to all of us. She has made it clear to the Manifesto Committee of which I am a part. She has made it clear to the parliamentary group that this coming election will be the last time that this kind of conduct can be tolerated in Barbados. And that if it needs be, and if evidence is clear, then the necessary action, including up to and including criminal action, will be taken against wrongdoers whose role is clear on the preponderance of the evidence. Now, I've heard her say this before. I don't want you to lose track of the consistency of the lady. She said it in Parliament. And she even went so far as to say she's prepared to divorce the Barbados Labour Party from the process, calling the FBI, calling Scotland Yard, calling whosoever may be. I think she also said the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, whosoever. But it has to come to a point where a public example got to be made of a few people. They like to wear blue. They like to wear blue. Be careful. Careful what you wish for. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about tonight is that we have to make sure that this cad that leads the country can obfuscate and confuse issues and make people out there believe that wrong things or get the head tied up about things are not clear. We got to make sure that 2013, in other words, don't happen again. When you put some fraudulent issues out there and then debate the fraudulent issue and the whole country run behind it, that smoke and mirrors will not work. I telling you, it can't work with me. And as long as I can stand here, it ain't gonna work with you. So I want you to understand that when he put Chris Sickler the other night to talk about this Hitler talk, you remember reading it in the paper? Huh? You remember? And personally, I am offended as a Barbadian. Because if you understand the politics surrounding that Hitler thing, right? It wasn't just racism, right? It was absolute power wielded to destroy life. Supremacy in all ways, above all things, above all people. That's what it was about. Up to and including killing millions of people. So I was deeply disturbed that a section of the press would put the foolishness, run with that and put Heil Mir as a front page banner. And I think out of decency, they should apologize to the country for what they have communicated. I go no further than that. But I also want to say this to you. Don't ever believe that From the Shore and any of his goons can come and paint this Labour Party as though it is an institution that is going to tolerate absolutism and totalitarian politics. There is a totalitarian in Barbados. There is a dictator in Barbados. But he is holding office as Prime Minister tonight. And he won't be holding office for much longer. If they want to talk this language, then let us understand that we can go back a little way too. History don't begin a couple weeks ago. I understand why they have this angst with them. But as much as they like to talk about Christchurch West, I want to talk a little bit about Christchurch West too. Because history of Christchurch West didn't begin with Dr. Maria Agard. That's what this is about. But let us understand that there's a man called Tanabed who won a nomination in Christchurch West from the short. He won a nomination. He got 86 out of 95 votes cast in a nomination in Christchurch West for the Democratic Labour Party. 86 people who were members of that branch voted for Tanabed, a woman who was brought there on the basis of the fact that she is the kith and kin of Sir Philip Graves, contested the nomination and got 5 votes. And they made her the candidate, not the man that get 86. So if you want to talk to me about dictatorial behavior in politics from the short, start home at you. Start home at you. And that wasn't an aberration. That wasn't any sudden departure from the norm, because in St. James North, right next door to me and Sandra Husbands, and forgive me if I speak of Sandra as though she is the sitting member. She soon will be. She deserves to be spoken that way. Next door to you and me and you, Sandra, a fellow called Austin Husbands won every vote cast in a nomination for the Democratic Labour Party. St. James Central folks, is that not true? Right next door to us. Every vote. And the man who ran against him, called Harry Husbands, got no votes. But Harry Husbands was made the candidate. So when these people want to get up and present themselves as washed in the blood, holier than thou, the two-facedness and the fork-tongued nature of their hypocrisy is starting to humbug me. It's starting to humbug me. Because there's nothing pure about the Democratic Labour Party's way of functioning. Nothing. And we got to let this thing be scotched now. Stop it early. So friends, sure, I'm critical when we want to have wash your mouth from here. Come better than that. Come better than that. I know that a man who has no record to run on has a record to run from. That's a fact. Friend, the short has no record of achievement to run on, so he has a record of underachievement to run from. And he is going to go out of his way, as you now see him doing, to find every pretense and every excuse to hide from his record of failure and underachievement, and to bring every form of smoke and mirrors and distraction. This party cannot allow itself to be distracted. I agree with Dale and Mayor. We sat, we talked. I'm not going to break from it. We will discuss the Public Accounts Committee findings and recommendations, because the recommendations are very important. The recommendations give you an insight into the mind of the committee, but more importantly, into the intention of the chairman if ever she becomes Prime Minister of Barbados, and I hope to God it will be soon. But hear me, Labour Party, hear me and hear me well. Verily, verily, I say unto you, that situation, which will also be revealed in the Public Accounts Committee report, with respect to using the National Housing Corporation, in spite of it being $75 million in debt at that time, because it is more deeply in debt tonight. But in spite of it being in debt to that magnitude at that time, and they willfully and deliberately and with malice aforethought set about to bring people into the corporation on the eve of an election, knowing full well that it was crumbling under the weight of its own debt, knowing full well that they were struggling to pay staff, could not pay staff, and had in fact, without letting Parliament know, to secure a transfer of over $2 million every single month to pay the existing staff and to pay off debt that they couldn't pay. They set about to make the situation worse for the corporation, literally to bankrupt it, because of a narrow intent that they must win government at all costs. And so that which we have to pay back as a people tonight finds its genesis in the mismanagement and the willful abuse of the public process led by ministers of the Democratic Labour Party. Again, you can't divorce from the short from it because he sits as primus inter pares, first among equals. They can't do it without the blessing of the Prime Minister. So Jeff Brooms, when I say to you that he's worse than the rear end of a rat, I say no apology. Because I got to find that money, and you got to find that money, and if Jeff Brooms had a modicum of common sense, he too would realize he got to find the money too to help pay back for all of this disgraceful behavior that from the short parades over. Night after night, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. That is what the disgrace is in this country. And look, it is not only the National Housing Corporation, folks. CBC is tonight $100 million in debt and more, closer to $125 million. But do you know that tonight, as though 2013's disgrace and scandal never took place, tonight they are doing the same thing at CBC that they did at the NHC in 2013 under the watch of Frandl Jerome Stewart. So what then do we say of this man? What do we say of this man who sits like a contaminated saddle on the people of Barbados? What do we say of him? Do we welcome him into the high society of the saints and laud him and praise him? Or do we speak truth to power and let him know that he is he is largely responsible for the disgrace that this country now finds itself in? And it is not only CBC. It is not only NHC. The statutory corporations are again being used by this government in a way that this government views is beneficial to their political purpose, without any reflection on what happens next. Now I ask you, I believe that the time for us to go home is upon us. So I ain't keep you long, but I ask you, if you had, but darling, if you want to hear me, I will let you talk, but I gotta abide by the rules. I ain't be long. If you had any business, a snow cone cart, a bread shop, name it, ain't got to be nothing too big, but you realize that you are in deep debt. You think that the solution to your debt problem got me to bring in 5 people to work for you? And if you ain't gonna do that, let us understand that what the Democratic Labour Party is hell-bent on keeping doing is bad, not just bad business, it's bad government and bad governance. And the point that we are trying to make to this country is that Barbados can transform itself from this mess. But the first thing you have to do is to break the shackles that hold this country down. And I want, yes, it begins with a new leader. God bless you, darling. It begins with a new leader. But it must also include a team with a different thought process. A team that is dedicated to speaking the language of growth in this country. That looks at the young people here in this audience. And some of the hundreds of them, my part drove, I was shocked. I thought it was a fete. You got people in the 20s and 30s here in abundance, hundreds outside. Hundreds. And they want to know that the Barbados that they will live in and grow their families in, man, is not a Barbados that is broken and saddled with debt and disturbed and frustrated by corruption. They want to know that they be given an opportunity to develop their business and their skills and to sell those skills not only locally but regionally and internationally and earn foreign exchange instead of living on our knees and begging for it. That is the Barbados that we want. And we're going to go through with you chapter and verse how we will get there. But we got to deal with some of the wrong things along the way. We ain't going to humbug you every night about the wrong things, but there's so much wrong things you can hear about it every night. But you can also have to hear about the direction forward. Ladies and gentlemen, you were told at Montgomery Pastures, let's spend the night. Tell your friends, tell your family, Come. Come. Don't watch it on TV. Come. I want you to be there. I want you to stay on board this campaign express. I want you to hold the hand of our leader, Mayor Motley, hold the hand of all of our team, because we must have a resounding victory to send a signal to the hooligans out there that this must never be allowed to happen again in the land of our birth. Good night, and may God bless you. Travel safely.
Ladies and gentlemen, before